that they won at MSI, he really stepped up. He played confidently. I believe it was on LeBlanc, actually, and just kind of took over the game in many respects. But we're getting into the pick and ban phase. Look at that. Tom Kench banned out. I was just talking about this.
Yeah, BC still wants to avoid any of that pocket pick for Evie. He's looked really good at that champions. They want to take that out. Zed and LeBlanc, two very powerful assassins over on RPG's side, gonna go ahead and be taken away from Hollis. An
Yeah,
interesting beginning of the draft here.
yeah, and Zach, of course, Zach needs to be banned almost every game. I think right now on this patch, he's probably the only true power pick of the patch because the game is pretty wide open right now. Teams are pretty free to play kind of whatever they want, except for Zach. You can't let Zach through. And we do see the Syndra ban coming through, so Ramune is going to have to start this season on a completely different champion, which is
Yeah, I
always exciting.
I want to talk about the Zach pick because I think across all regions, North America, Europe, and Korea, that we've seen thus far on patch 7.10, he's got a 100% pick and ban rate over the last like 4 days. So
Pretty
very,
good.
very strong
Pretty
champion.
good. Yeah,
Uh,
and we do see the Lee Sin picked up. He's kind of the next, the top jungler on the next spot. We did criticize Japan a lot last season for not playing any Ivern at all, but we haven't really been seeing it a whole lot from the rest of the world either. We've been seeing a lot of this Lee Sin. We've been seeing a lot of this Elise coming out as well, and the Thresh has been making waves recently, particularly in Korea, due to literally everything else about the game changing except for Thresh.
right. Yeah. Thresh got a lot of indirect buffs over the last couple
Yasuo, Yasuo,
patches.
Yasuo, Yasuo, Yasuo.
Oh, please. Please lock it. I want to see it. I'd
Okay.
be so happy.
But
Zaya's a good one though. Let's talk about Zaya, new champion to be played on competitive. Anyways, this is the first patch that Zaya and Rakan are legal to be played. Very very strong AD carry, very good at straight line engages where you can kite backwards and forwards in like a direct line in a small corridor. We'll have to see if Burning Core can sort of manipulate team fights to that sort of angle so that Zaya can be at their most effective.
yeah, and I think it's a good pick here for Zeros as well, just seeing his playstyle. I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but BC with its current roster reminds me a lot of the Fnatic we used to see back when Xpeke was leading the squad. You had what was it, Soaz, Cyanide, Xpeke, Reckless, and Yellowstar, because you get this very, very aggressive top half of the board. You got Soaz and Xpeke. Almost, it feels in many times like they're mindlessly pushing and being aggressive, but at the same time, it gives Reckless so much freedom. He can play something like the Kog'Maw without any protection because, sometimes your protection is they're going to kill the other guys first. And
Right.
we'll see something very similar with Zeros. And if you don't focus Azaya, as we've seen many times, the Blade Caller passive that she has, where you bring all of the feathers back to you, does massive, massive damage.
Yeah. And we see in the second half of the draft here, both teams, both Rampage and Burning Core, looking to pinch the top lane pool. They've banned out pretty much all of the what you would consider standard carry top laners, so
Not
forcing
Jarvan.
both players. True, Jarvan is still available. We might see a Jarvan here. That'd be cool to see. Um, but in any case, likely to have tank compositions coming out of the top lane. We'll have to see what Evie decides to pick up here. Dara decides to pick up for Evie, I should say.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised to see something like a Galio or the Shen come out, something which offers a little bit more protection. They are a little bit lacking in engage though, except that Gragas. That's a good pickup. I do like that. It does give them a very good opportunity to have, you know, Lee Sin can be a secondary engage now, whereas before you were just kind of stuck with Kick being your only real option. But leaving that Gragas up does leave, what do you call it, the Galio available for Burning Core. And Maisie, I'm going to call him Beacon a couple times this cast, I'm sure. Um, Having that Galio is going to be a very strong pick. He's going to have tons of wave clear and able to really adjust his lane as he feels like it. Um, Overall, I really like both these compositions. The Karma in the mid lane for Ramune is a really interesting choice. He didn't really play that style of support mids last season, and it'll be.
Right.
I'm curious to see exactly how he brings it out. But Varus is a great champion on Utori. Dara's had great success on Zyra. Tussel's Lee Sin we saw plenty of during the playoffs and international competition. The only real question we're seeing here is how will Zaros really fit into the rest of Burning Core on that Xayah when BCAN or MeiZ, excuse me, does not have necessarily the carry style top laner that he's really made so many waves with.
Right. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how this Xayah plays out, especially, you know, have players had enough practice? We've got like Rampage has been back in the country for what, 2 weeks or
Something
so,
like
so
that.
they
It's not been a
should
long
be
time.
pretty well adjusted. We'll have to see if that's true or not. Um, Sticking to sort of their regular style of champions, all of these seem to be pretty comfortable picks, except maybe the Karma, as you mentioned. Uh, Meanwhile, on Burning Core's side, haven't seen a whole lot of this team, so I'm not entirely sure how well they're going to be able to put their picks together. Hollis, though, on Oriana, always a solid pickup. Um, a champion seems to be good every patch, all the time, and competitive.
Yeah, she and Lee Sin are two champions that have survived almost every meta at this point. You start to see, especially as you start to see all the power picks of things like, Zed or Fizz or Talon, depending on what patch and what year you're talking about. Oriana's been a staple there because she's just so safe against some of these guys. And we're getting in one more time to the Rift. Always a treat to see how different countries do decide to actually bring out, this opening animation. And I have to say, I'm a really big fan of the one that Japan does.
Yeah, it's nice. It's really cool. Doesn't look like there's going to be anything too fancy.
Okay,
Uh,
there's only two Doran shields in the game.
Clearly, this is an error that we must fix.
Clearly, I really hope some of them ask for a restart. That's not the kind of thing that is okay right now. No, but seriously, Doran Shield is super strong. The only ones we see being on the ADCs is an interesting adaptation we've been seeing recently. It just allows you to really stay in lane for so much longer, partly because you have less kill pressure, but also because your opponent has far less kill pressure as well. So it ends up just bringing the early power levels of the lanes way down in terms of amount of damage, and we'll see a lot of jungle interaction down there, I'm sure, to see what goes on. But I like this ward. Have you been seeing the adaptation in Korea, particularly with Talia and messing with the Raptor starts?
Yeah, it's really obnoxious, actually, and very difficult to counteract. A lot of people want to start Raptors because it's the most difficult camp to do solo. So if you can get that out of the way really quick with an early leash, that can be really helpful. But you know, mid laners starting to adapt to that now can find ways to slow down the enemy jungler's clear with
Yeah,
almost no repercussions.
yeah,
Not going to be the case in this game. Both teams just going to happily trade off their Raptors.
yeah, and I think that's something that Karma would have actually been very good at, just going over, throwing over the empowered Q, picking up a single Raptor and slowing down Astarore's clear a significant amount. But nope, neither of them going to do it. Dara and Yutori head down to the bot lane early just to get a lot of those plants down. And so far, nothing really surprising coming out by either of these teams. The only keystone that's even slightly unusual is the Warlord's Fervor coming out on Zeros as opposed to the Warlord's Bloodlust as opposed to the Fervor.
Yeah, I guess he just wants to survive in the poke lane, wants to avoid as much. This will allow Zeros to be able to build that Essence Reaver into Runan's Hurricane build that we've seen from Xayah. Very strong late game, but has a weaker impact early on than perhaps the Blade of the Rune King build that we've seen in the past. Taking that Warlords does, however, mitigate that problem because they no longer need a lifesteal. So I like that choice.
Yeah, and here we see Astrari already coming down behind Rampage's bot lane. They're not going to see this quite yet. He does pick up the Krugs, and if he does choose to go for a gank, it could be very devastating. As we said, the bot lanes are not as strong right now due to the Doran shield starts.
Oh, here we come.
Nah, just gonna finish off those Krugs and peace out. And right now, we're actually seeing something really interesting. Evie's one of those top laners that I've had sometimes struggling with his calling, one of the greatest top laners in Japan simply because of his lack of ability to play carry champions, but he's really bullying out Mei Z right now and picking up a fairly substantial CS lead for such an early part of the game.
Right, and you can see, in the top right corner, Macy is having to expend a lot of mana in order to CS under his turret, which is not something that you want to see. An early back can force a teleport, which would allow Rampage to take even further control over the map.
Yeah, and Tussle is up here. They are potentially ready for a dive. Evie's trying to build up a larger wave so they can actually do it. And Mei Z is not in a great position. Like you said, the mana is slowly starting to run out. And with his wave clear gone, it could be a potentially very dangerous point for them. But Tussle's gonna back out. Ostroris is the exact same thing, starting to head top lane to support his top laner. Because having a Galio from behind is just not good. He's got such a strong early game.
Right. And we've seen this Galio been played to great success in other regions. I believe this is the first time that I've seen it being played over in Japan. I'm excited to see how it plays out for these players, especially given that um, we haven't really seen it.
We haven't seen it. I think the only time Japan has played it was at MSI. I think Evie had a single game on it, and it was okay. It did all
Right.
right, but that's generally how you describe the Japan at MSI this year, regardless. Um, but it just hasn't been legal. This is the first patch where they can really just bring it out in the regular season, and Maisy's not finding the success a lot of other regions have had with that champion so far. And we see he's already got a significant CS lead for
Oh,
so early in the game, but the junglers are about to find each other.
oh.
Tussle does find Astrori, gets so much damage, procs the Thunderlord, and here comes Ramune. Forces a flash out of Astrori, but Ramune is going to flash forward, getting a lot of damage down. He does get the root. Paulus is out of mana. Tussle mistimes the Q and just barely misses out on the potential first blood.
Wow. Really well laid trap from Rampage. You saw Tussle immediately after his back. He picked up that tracker's knife, ran into the enemy jungle, and immediately put those super deep wards down. Very smart control of the jungle from him. Unfortunately, not able to convert it to a kill this time, but will burn
Uh-oh.
Astorori's flash.
Here comes Karma's teleport already going back in. They know he has no flash. Gets the root down. He's going to go right up into the air. And there's Gromp. This could be really big. Misses the resonating strike, but it doesn't matter. Ramne finds him. Dara over the wall getting the grasping roots down. And that is going to be first blood going over to Rampage.
What a really creative use of teleport. Such a huge tempo swing, right? Not only was Romane able to back at a good time, he was also able to purchase an item and immediately use that teleport to get a kill. And he doesn't even miss CS because he's just so close to mid lane.
Yeah, Evie's going really low. This is really close. Maisie's not confident. It ends up flashing out. Big win for Evie. There's not a whole lot left to do. Asteroid is nowhere nearby. Maisie doesn't have any more mana or any more health to really contest anything with. So that's a big lead coming out for Evie already. But I do like the Ramune we're seeing. We
Yeah,
criticized him for not being very confident before, and that was some confidence that we saw coming from him.
yeah. And you can see Ramane looking to build sort of the standard supportive mid lane karma build. You grab that Athene's Unholy Grail for the extra shielding and damage pressure, and then likely to follow that up immediately with an Ardent Sensor, further buffing the entire team by giving attack speed and on hit damage. Really, really strong in the mid game. And at this point, Rampage just bullying across the map. Only only the bottom lane seems to be giving them any trouble at all.
Yeah, right now we do see that, and that's not terribly surprising. Utori's been one of the strongest ADCs in the region for a long time now, and this is really trial by fire in many ways for Burning Core. We saw them absolutely dominate the challenger scene, but there weren't mid laners like Ramune. There weren't top laners like Evie in the scene. They were so far ahead of everybody else, and it's gonna be they're really going to need to step up and prove that they deserve a top three spot. Because right now, I expect them to finish fourth behind the three major teams. which is totally fine. That's a very respectable start for this team, but right now they're not showing anything that leaves us, to really put them on the same level as Rampage. Detonation Focus Music.
Oh,
Here we go. The corrupting things come out, and there we go. We're seeing a lot of ultimates already committed. Osterori does come in a little bit, comes down with the repel. The
here comes Hollis.
Hollis is kind of come down behind them. Yutori Miyashi and Dara are starting to run out. There's no flash left on Yutori. Shockwave does get a little bit of damage, but there's not a whole lot more that he can do off of that. They do have the tempo on Dragon right now, and they might choose to opt for that. But right now, there was a lot of resources blown for very little gain.
Yeah, we saw BC. They had the right idea, making the quick play while Tussle was off the map, not in there, able to respond. Legato had that great flash lantern in order to bring Asteroid immediately in. Unfortunately, though, the execution wasn't really the best. Legato missed his hook. Asteroid missed his cocoon. Unable to convert that into any kills whatsoever. RPG now able to maybe stabilize, recover some vision on the dragon area, and go back to the lanes. Pretty happy with that.
Yeah, we do see a lead coming out for them right now. About 1,500 gold coming out, and they're really going to start to build up an advantage if these plays continue to fail on Burning Court's side. They do now have the members and the gold lead in the bottom half of the map, so they can start to pressure towards that dragon. And early game oceans are so impactful due to the extra regeneration that they do provide for all of your laners. And right now, we are seeing Evie starting to get bullied around a lot by Maisie as he starts to get, more points into that queue, more damage coming out, and by opting for the non-magic mantle as opposed to the boots, he just wins out these trades just little by little by little. Yes, Detonation Rising did become Burning Core. It is all the same members except for Zeros. They did choose to pick up Zeros as opposed to their Challenger Series ADC Akashi. And honestly, it's going to be a huge upgrade for the entire team. But Tussle starting the Dragon here. I like it.
Yeah. I like this sneak. It's really interesting, too, because despite Burning Core having decent-ish wards on the area, they don't actually have vision of the pit. A smart play from Tussle, able to pick up on sort of the slow pace of this game and sneak an early dragon.
Yeah, and he still has a CS advantage as well, going up against Osterauer. He's got a lot of extra damage that he's going to be bringing out to the rest of the team, and it looks like Osterauer is opting for the Runic Echoes. Very unsurprising pickup on Elise, but we've seen a lot of differences in opinion over Elise players. Some preferring a Cinder Hulk in the competitive play and just going for the more defensive tank, Cocoon Bot style of play, but that's not Osterauer. He's a very aggressive jungler.
Yeah, and I like this pickup in the context of this team composition. They already have a super tanky Galio and a mildly tanky but definitely frontline Thresh. So in that scenario, just having as much burst damage to really single out Yutori Mayasi or Ramade in these fights, definitely going to be helpful for Burning Core.
Yeah,
a little bit of a scuffle top lane.
Not a whole lot going down. Yeah, just a little bit of ward transferage, but there we did see the Ocean proc a little bit of extra health and mana going back to Evie. But we're seeing an interesting adaptation here from Evie. He does opt for the very early Mercury treads.
I like that choice. You're gonna be building magic resist in that matchup anyways, and finishing the boots allows you to move faster to perhaps dodge some of Galio's skill shots, as well as reducing the cooldown, reducing the duration of Asterari's Cocoon if Elise goes up top lane to gank. So a smart adaptation, I feel, from Evie, recognizing that this game, they're really looking to scale up. He doesn't want to risk getting dove or something like that by this heavy CC.
Yeah, and we're seeing a lot of people coming out. The hook does land onto Dara. We're seeing a lot of people already come out. Tussle's getting a lot of damage, and there goes Osterori, but it's traded right back for Dara. Tussle and Ramane are going to keep fighting, but here comes the ultimate coming in from Maisie. He teleported already and comes down there. That's going to be a big win coming up for Burning Core. They're seeing a little bit of return as Evie comes back. He still has that explosive cast to escape it, but Yutori Miyashi is just now starting to get to the fight. And that's a 2-for-1 over in favor of Burning Core. I don't think they're going to be able to get anything off of it, though. It's just a large scuffle.
Yeah, huge Galio ultimate coming out there. Maisie teleporting near the fight and then using that ultimate to get really get deep in there. Oh, a tussle.
Oh, yeah, here we go. Tussel's coming down. He does not have the Dragon's Rage anymore, but they're still going. He does have the red buff slow onto Zeros. He's forced to use the ultimate and his flash, and Ramene's here as well. Looks like they're going to try and go for the dive. They do get a lot of damage onto Legato, and they're going to finish it off right here. Yutori gets the last hit, but he's caught under turret, forced to flash and heal out. I don't think
Yeah,
he needed to do that. He wasn't tanking yet, but better safe than sorry. Always. They're going to be
yeah,
rewarded with this first tower.
yeah. Well played by Rampage to punish Zerost and Legato. They definitely thought after winning that fight that they would be safe to push up the wave and then perhaps back, but Tussle had the game sense, right, to go down there and win the 2v2 along with the teleport from Ramune. And Asterari now going to solo this Rift Herald.
Yeah, I can absolutely do it. As many people have said in the past, it's definitely been the Constellation Dragon, but now I think it's stronger. It's not. It's definitely not worth the first turret because you often want to use it to get that first turret. But it is going to be a lot of pressure that they bring to the team, and right now it's going to be uncontested. Dara might show up in time, but that could easily bring a gold lead back. Uh-oh, here comes Dara. Will we see a steal? Nah, it does end up going over to Astrari, picks up the buff, and they're going to be able to make it out safely.
Yeah, so I want to talk about the Rift Trail changes for those of our viewers who maybe haven't seen this before. On patch 7.10, they changed the Rift Herald. Now it creates a buff that sits in your ward bore, so you can't use a ward while you have it, but when you use the item, you channel for 3 seconds and you spawn the Rift Herald in a lane, and it just absolutely crushes down a turret.
Uh-oh, here's Dara. Starting to get a lot of attention towards the top lane with the bot turret down. We do see the lane swaps coming out. And Gragas in the bot lane, but not a whole lot they could do. They see Legato nearby. They know that Osterari has to be somewhere nearby. That's just what happens right here. But here comes Ramune going in the shockwave, forcing him away. He does have the root down, misses the burning flame, and that might be it. But he's like, nah, we're still going. Tusk comes in, misses the resonating strike. There comes Dara flashing in. Oh no, but the Dragon's Rage is enough to kill him, and that should be it.
Oh!
Explosive cast, long range snipes. Japanese sniper,
Wow.
anyone?
Hollis did everything that he could. He played so well around that middle lane. He dodged out so many skill shots. I saw the Lee Sin Q miss, Ramene's Q miss,
Dara
the
flashed
Dara.
forward. It's that was one messy as hell dive, but they ended up they got what they came for, and now they're starting to push down this turret as well. And look at the amount of damage Karma does early in the game, even without a whole lot of AP. She's got the Sorcerer's Shoes and the Athene's and Holy Grail, and she's still chunking out Zeros by half every time he hits a Q.
Yeah, this is really the power of this mid lane Karma pick. You have crazy wave control, even just starting from level 1 with the Mantra Q ability, just absolutely murders waves. And you transition that into a very strong mid lane, shielding and supporting your teammates. This is kind of cute. Dara helping Tussle out with the Earth Dragon, using her plants to tank it up.
Yeah, that actually takes a lot of damage, but this is a little bit scary. We are going to see a 50-50 come out. Elise and Lee Sin both very good at smiting the dragons, and we are going to see, wow, here comes Galio. Maisie's going to ult in. Lee Sin does pick it up, but at the cost of his life. Mountain Dragon for Lee Sin, that's usually worthwhile, but right now we're seeing BC heading straight to the mid lane, knowing they're a member up, and this could be very painful for them.
Yeah, I very easily see BC being able to take down this mid lane very quickly. Ramune does have decent wave clear. We talked about the Mantra Q earlier, but it's going to be a struggle. It looks like BC instead going to transition their strength over into the bottom lane to try and knock down this turret instead.
Where'd the Rift Herald spawn? It looks like it's going to be spawning towards the bot side Tribush, and it is going to walk quite a ways away as it's just trying to get to the nearest lane, and that should be the pressure they need to get their first turret.
I always love watching the new Rift Herald. They're just absolutely demolishes turrets. This animation
Yeah,
just super
absolutely.
cool.
Shockwave comes out, a lot of damage onto Yutori. Asteroid flashes
Oh,
forward the cocoon. He is going to be taking a lot of damage and finally does go down to Hollis. That was just a pure overextension of the team, pure and simple. They knew that nobody was bot lane. They're coming up, and here comes Romney.
oh, the
They
flash.
flash forward by Mei-Z, getting the taunt onto two members. There's got a lot of peel coming out right now, and Mei-Z is going to have to struggle to continue to stay on them. Does commit his flash, doesn't get anything for it. I believe he trades for Romney's flash.
Yeah,
But yeah,
really good pickup from Burning Core. Hollis recognizing, you saw Rampage, they really wanted to take advantage of the fact that Asterari burned the Rift Herald in the bottom lane. They thought, okay, they're going to use that Rift Herald. We're going to try and take down this mid turret, but they overstay a little bit. Hollis able to land a great shockwave, slows them down just enough for the rest of the team to show up and pick up a quick kill.
yeah, and Osterhard smartly flashing forward to just make sure that they actually get that pick. Without that, they probably would have been able to walk out because we do see Yutori does have his flash up available now. I don't know if it was up during the fight or not, but they definitely could have escaped without that. He did end up burning his heal, and here we see Yutori getting caught out a little bit again. There's no flash on Mei-Z, so I think the taunt is going to be not quite in range, but he does have to blow his flash anyway. And that taunt is creating so much pressure. You don't even have to be inside it because he had nowhere else to dodge without using his flash from the death sentence coming out from Thresh. He had
Yeah,
to flash that.
yeah, Macy looking really impressive on this champion, honestly. And it's interesting. You typically think that the you expect players to make like game-winning plays on carry top laners, right? You expect to see things like Rumble or like Kennen really dictating the pace of the game, but in this case, Burning Core, Mei-Z has been doing a great job of setting up fights for his team, engaging when he can, even without like um, an ultimate delivery system that we maybe see a lot of teams pick when they pick up Galio.
Yeah, and that could be really, really good going forward right now. We are seeing him step up right now. We're not seeing the aggression coming out from Hollis like we would have expected, but he's not on the kind of champion who's going to be split pushing so much in this game, and that's showing a lot of respect to Rampage, I think. But Maisy's here on the backside. They do know that they have a numbers advantage until Romney shows up, but they do see Evie choose not to pull the trigger, and that's probably a smart idea. They're down in Dragons. There's not a whole lot to fight for other than that mid turret. And Romney's got his teleport.
No.
He's probably going to take this top turret if nobody roams up. But Tussel's likely to find someone here. Zeros just like, nah, I'm not going to touch that word.
Yeah. No thanks. Not interested in taking a Lee Sin Q to the face. Sorry.
But
At first I thought Tussle was in a bit of trouble because he definitely walked over a ward and went to steal away that red buff, but unfortunately, Burning Core just didn't quite have the angle in on the buff in order to contest it. And
yeah,
now Rampage looking to put damage on this top turret.
they had so much pressure. I think it was a good thing actually that Tussle walked over that ward because now Burning Core knows that Lee Sin's there. They know that they can't safely roam up to start fighting Romney in the top lane, and it does end up securing them the tower. And that's just such good pressure play. You don't necessarily need to kill your opponent so much as just have the threat of killing them there available to you, and they rewarded for it once again. And with the dragon coming up in just about a minute, Baron already live, we're going to start seeing this game become very explosive in the next couple of minutes, especially with the gold so close. The biggest difference between the two teams is going to be those two dragons.
Right, and I'm very impressed by Rampage thus far. They seem to have a good handle on what they need to do in order to win the game. I'm a little bit worried, however, if they aren't able to extend this gold lead beyond the 2K that they're currently sitting at. I'm worried about the strength of their composition in the late game. They have a lot of crowd control on all of their champions, but Lee Sin, not the strongest jungler that you want to see at the 35-40 minute mark.
Double pings, but yeah, Yutora is really the only primary damage threat right now. They're putting so many eggs into one basket. There's not that much damage coming out from Gragas. There's not that much damage coming out. That's an interesting taunt. Okay, chooses not to commit the flash. That was going to be a very, very bold move if he did choose to pull that out. But yeah, like you said, there's not a lot of damage coming out. Ramne is still doing a lot of damage right now simply because his base values are so high. But as he starts to rely on the scaling more, it's going to be difficult. And Oriana, as we've seen for so long, does so much damage once you start letting her get to those 3, 4 items. And we're honestly in Hollis' probably weakest point of the entire game. He's only going to get stronger from this point out because his scalings are so good. And the Luden's Echo shores up that weakness a little bit, but not necessarily a whole lot compared to everything else.
Right. And here we see, some more items coming in. Yutori really wants to fight if he can right here because he has completed his 2-item power spike with the Runen's Hurricane being picked up. Zeros still not quite on par with that. Both teams sort of dancing around this middle lane. Looks like the next contest is going to be over this Earth Dragon. BC, let's see if they're
Ooh.
able to get in here.
Yutori's positioning right now is not great. Luckily, Burning Core doesn't quite see him, so they aren't able to really start the fight that they know would be 5v4 otherwise. But yeah, there's not a whole lot of wasted movement anymore from Rampage like we were seeing last split, and a
Oh,
lack of confidence. Here we go. Evie comes in, gets the explosive cask only onto one. Osteror is caught off on the side, but he catching out Dar. He does get kicked back in with the Dragon's Rage, but he is going to make it out with the flash as he does repel right away to the person who kicked him in. And that's a couple of flashes blown for Rampage. Not a whole lot blown from Burning Core, but it is going to reward Rampage once again with this mid turret. And they've been doing that time after time after time. And, Burning Core needs to be able to make some aggressive moves. And right now, they have the inside track once more, and they're going to get the second turret.
yeah. Rampage playing this beautifully. Zerost almost going down.
Oh, Shockwave misses. There goes Maisie into the rest of the team. He's not doing a whole lot of damage, and nobody's quite falling yet. Maisie's going to be left alone. Romney's going to try and slow him up. There's not a whole lot he can do right now. There's no dark passage to get him out. That is Maisie going down. And now Rampage is going to cycle over to the bot lane and get a third turret in the past, 2 minutes.
Yeah, one thing that this Rampage team composition is punishing mistakes, right? With Ramade's move speed bonus to the entire team off of that karma, even just slight errors can end up costing you turret after turret. And Rampage just blew this whole game wide open with that play.
Yeah, there's only 1 kill extra on the board, but they have a 5,000 gold lead, extended it by 3,000 from what they had before. We're starting to see more power spikes coming in. Void Staff picked up by Ramne, the Quicksilver Sash picked up by Yutori, Iceborne Gauntlet in the top lane for Evus. We are seeing, it is a top lane carry meta right now, and he does need to do a little bit of damage. He recognizes his team doesn't have it. But at the same time, Zeros does finally pick up the Ruinous Hurricane. There's 2-item Galio. It is starting to become, we're starting to get to a point of the game where you need to have pressure, you need to have a gold lead. Otherwise, we're just going to see a dance around this Baron for the next 30 minutes as they all just try and dance around and do Japanese things.
Right. Rampage, though, being pretty decisive thus far, have the pinks in the Baron pit. Gonna see if they can force something to happen here around this Baron and pick it up for themselves. A
Yeah.
lot of pink wards purchased already. I like this. Setting up vision before they go for it.
Yeah, Rampage definitely seems to be in a strong position from when they were last season. Ooh,
Ooh.
Death Set is barely missing. And there's a really good push coming down from the bot wave, from the wave management that Rampage has had so far. That's going to give them a lot more pressure. And
Oh,
Maisie is in a
Maisie.
bad spot. Tusk comes in, gets the Dragon Rage onto him. There comes another Root. There's not a whole lot he can do. He's going to have to ultimate out, I think. The team is slow to get there, and Maisie's still alive. Dark Passage actually saves him. Explosive Cask not going to do a whole lot. Cocoon misses, and Rampage is going to be able to back out, not necessarily losing a whole lot for that, but they burned a lot of resources for a pick that they didn't get.
Yeah, and we were talking about Rampage not quite having a great scaling composition in terms of damage, and you saw it right there. Maisie able to tank up 5 members of the team wailing on him for 4 seconds without his team. Totally fine, able to just walk right out with a dark passage. And Rampage needs to find. They're great for finding picks, but they need to find a pick that isn't on a very, very tanky game.
Yeah, and we do see some interesting things coming out to help them with that. There is the Rylai's coming out on Tadara as opposed to the Leandries many of us are used to seeing. We do finally see the last Whisper picked up by Utori, and that's going to bring them so much opportunities to actually start pounding down Maisie. And we're starting, like we said, we're starting to see a little bit more damage optimization coming out from the rest of the team. There is the Hex Drinker on Lee Sin. There's the Rylai's, and I'm going to assume that's a Banshee's Veil being worked on by Dara. But there's a lot of small things the team is doing to try and shore up the damage weaknesses that they definitely have.
Right. And Rampage again, looking to set up vision. They're playing it calm and collected, which I like about this team. Um, they want to make a play around this Baron. You can see it in their item choices. You can see it in their builds. You can see it in their position on the map. They keep running back to this turret because they know that they have the gold lead and they know that they have double Earth Dragons. They take down this Baron very, very quickly. They just need to find the right moment to pull the trigger.
And then they're looking for it all over the place. And right now, with Maisie on the opposite side of the map, that's not necessarily the best time for them to do it. He does have the global and the pseudo global in his ultimate, and they just need to find a pick right now. And I don't know if they have the better team fighting composition. Tussle's getting
Oh,
caught out a little bit. Doesn't end up taking too much. There comes a shockwave. Tussle does take a lot of damage. That is going to force him to back and potentially give BC a little bit of opportunity to do something. We do see Romney backing as well. Evie's down here stopping the Maisie push. It's going to be a long one right now, as we often see in the rest of the world. People are going to be dancing around this Baron a lot, and the vision game is going to tell us a lot about the game. Rampage definitely has more vision in Burning Core's top quadrant of the jungle, but they need to be able to solidify it or just pull a sneak. Honestly, they have a lot of ways to get over the wall. They
right.
do kill the blast cone there, and it'll be coming up again later for them to do something, but they can do it pretty fast. Varus does it fast. Lee Sin just does lots of damage to everything, and Ramne helping him out is gonna do a lot. And with this Cloud Dragon coming up, they're probably gonna pick that up. I don't see a reason for them not to. They got plenty of strength in their team, and that's just another thing to deny from Burning Core.
Right. Right. Um, right now, Tussle continuing to return to this Baron pit to clear out the vision. Um, both teams sort of reached a weird mid game lull here. Um, you can see that Rampage, they've taken all of the lane, and so they're in a somewhat difficult position where they have to run deep into enemy territory in order to make any more plays. So without finding a quick kill or an obvious mistake from Burning Core, it's difficult for them to close out the game right now. And you can see from Burning Core, they're doing exactly what they need to do: elongate the game, wait for Tussle to fall off, wait for this Zaya and this Oriana to scale up and get all the items that they need. And Rampage just can't find a hole in this that they've got.
Yeah, they need to start finding ways to make Burning Core have mistakes. And this Cloud Dragon is actually going to be a very good way to do that if they do solidify it. Here comes Maisie. He's the only one there. I don't think he's going to have a good chance of stealing it. He doesn't. And that Cloud Dragon coming out for Rampage could give them a lot of opportunities to make some more catches. But the Banshee's Veil coming out on Osterara, you can't really engage well into him. And they do finally lose their mid turret. It's only a 4,000 gold lead right now for Rampage. And at 32 minutes, that's really not a whole lot.
Yeah, and that lead hasn't grown or shrunk in the last, I'd say, 10 minutes or so, which is a good sign for Burning. They are keeping it close. As we approach the 40-minute mark, the gold lead starts to matter less and less as teams complete item 4, item 5, item 6 into their build paths. Gold
Yeah.
doesn't have as much of an impact on the game as individual player skill.
Yeah, and we do see once again more baskets or more eggs are being put into the Utori basket. Knight's Vow coming out from Evie. He's gonna make Utori do a little bit of or take a little bit of extra damage and heal him up, and that's always good for this tank kind of champion. And right now we do see Maisie forcing forcing the checks with his Q, and there goes the Dark Passage. But uh-oh, here we go. He does get caught. He does use the taunt. A lot of damage reduction coming out, and Tussle's in a bad spot. He's gonna have to get out of here somehow. He does end up flashing over the wall, and that is going to be almost enough. Uh-oh, here comes Asteroid. The heal comes out from Yutori, and that is the pick onto the jungler. That's exactly what they need. Tons of flashes being blown right now as the Shockwave completely misses. Ramne takes a lot. Maisie is in on the backline, getting a lot of damage onto the support, but that's a support mid laner. Yutori's getting a little bit of damage over the side, but he's not going to be able to do a whole lot more than that. But with Aurora dead, Rampage is going to look at the Baron right away, and this could be very easily what they need to solidify the game.
Yeah, we're seeing the strength of that Ocean Drake, even though having been brought very, very low, able to come back right away. And oh, but here comes the TP.
Yeah, Maisie is coming right back in. They do finally pick up the Baron, but here comes the rest of the team. Hollis flashes in, not able to solidify the kill onto Ramne. He's still ticking around. Evie's in a bad spot. He might go down. Tussle jumps over the wall. This is a very split fight. Yutori's in a good spot, but Evie does get hooked. Whoa, he's still alive. Tussle and Evie just like moving around so quickly. Maisie still at high health though, and here's the team speed coming out from Ramne. That should get them out. Maybe not Evie. The empowered recall is not going to be enough, but if all you have to trade is your top laner for Baron, I'll do it every time. He's taking up so much time leading Burning Core on a merry chase.
Yeah, really well played by Evie there. There were so many times where I thought that he was going to die, and then he just didn't. Right? For the longest time, he just held the attention of Burning Core. Even just one or two members. That was all it took for Rampage to be able to secure the Baron and back in time so that they didn't lose more than just the top turret. Let's watch that again.
Yeah, here we come. We do see Maisie coming in. I'll let you take this over in a minute, but it's just we do see the Baron go over, and that should be all that they really need.
Yeah, and Evie stuck on the side, not able to find any kills or anything like that, but you see, gets hooked there. However, is able to just run out. Zerost flashes forward, but he doesn't have vision of that bush, so he's not able to land any additional auto attacks. And Evie eventually does fall down, but a great Baron secure for Rampage.
Yeah, that just came out what looked like a catch onto Tussle, actually. A pause is coming out. I'm not sure what that's about. I'm sure the Japanese casters will learn more than we will. Fortunately, neither of us speak good enough Japanese to really understand exactly what they'll be talking about. But let's take a look at the rest of the game right now. Tussle was caught out. He's fairly squishy with his build, with the Hex Drinker and the Warrior Enchant. And look at that. It's starting to get bright out outside. Man, it's early. But yeah, so Tussle got caught out. Osterari goes very aggressive. We mentioned this earlier. That's the Expeke, Soaz, and Cyanide. They're going to do things that are a little bit risky if they can get a lead off of it. And if either team had killed the jungler there, which Osterari was more than happy to trade his life for Tussle's to prevent a potential steal, it ends up not working out. And they do trade, a single kill. A single kill was all that Rampage needed in order to secure that objective. And this is probably what we need to see them break the base.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. I also think this is a scenario. Burning Core appears to be playing as though they're further behind than they are.
Yeah.
It feels like they are giving up objectives that they don't need to because they look at the score line and they say, oh, we're down in kills, we're down in towers, we're down in gold. We don't have the strength that we need in order to really push back against Rampage. And I think that this is something that they could definitely improve going further into this game. Just having the confidence to pull the trigger a little bit quicker. They were so close to being able to fight for that Baron, but they just didn't quite have the angle on it. And Evie stalled them for so long.
Yeah, and it's
unfortunate
not really
for them.
It's not the playstyle that we expected to see from Burning Core coming in to the entire split. They looked much more aggressive, much more decisive than that. But, as we always talk about, it's so much easier to shot call when you're ahead. And Burning Core isn't ahead right now. I'd expect to see someone like Osterare or Hollis likely calling most of the shots. And if your shot caller's ahead, it's super easy. You just do whatever you want. Hollis is not ahead. He's not on a champion we would necessarily expect to see him on. He's on a much more defensive, supportive champion. And he's not able to make necessarily the same kind of plays. He's got that shockwave available to him, but you need to kill Yutori. If you don't kill Yutori with that shockwave, there's not a whole lot of follow up you necessarily have. And it brings an interesting thing up where you start needing Zeros to make plays, which is not
Right.
necessarily the kind of player that he is. He'll only flash forward if he is incredibly confident in the flash. Otherwise, he'll slowly, he'll whittle you down. He's like the Reckless. He's going to be on the outside, doing as much damage in team fights by not dying.
Right. And the thing is, Burning Core 2 have drafted this composition that has the ability to make plays, right? They have this aggressive CC jungler with Elise, that a single well-timed cocoon can win the game, right? They have an Orianna that a single ultimate, single shockwave can win the game. Thresh with his hook and his flay able to single out a single member and just really delete them from the game. These champions are very, very strong when you can find those moments. And unfortunately, not quite able to find it just yet.
And I think they're giving too much respect over to Rampage right now. They're the new guys on the block. They're playing against, the strongest team on the field in theory, and they seem a little bit too scared. The Orianna pick was not something you necessarily, again, it's not something you necessarily expect out of Hollis. He has a large champion pool that can play pretty much whatever he wants. We saw some very good Zed play coming out of him during the last split and against Scars in the promotion tournament, actually. But it's not something that we're seeing. He's, we're getting back in the game, but it's a little disappointing to watch, honestly. And he does have a CS lead up on Ramune. Same thing for Maisie
Right.
over Evie, and that's something you might expect, seeing as how strong individually these players are. But it's not manifesting into anything useful. It's just mitigating the gold lead that Rampage has.
Right. Anyways, we're back in the game. Rampage has this Baron buff. Now, I'm curious where they're going to take it. It looks like they want to establish pressure in the mid lane as well as the bottom lane and really force Burning Core into a difficult pickle, so to speak.
That just sounds really funny. but
I'm sorry.
but yeah, we are starting to see that. Normally, you'd see a 1-3-1 style of composition with the double TP here, but Ramune is choosing to stick with the team a little bit more simply because he is that support. He's there to support Yutori, and that's all he needs to do. And Dussel's waiting a long time. Gonna give it over to Yutori Moyashi, and we are starting to see again more item breakpoints coming out. We do see the Dead Man's Plate coming out on Lee Sensor. He's going to be taking a lot less damage. Banshee's Veil was completed onto Dar, something he's been working on for a long time. And we are starting to move towards a lot more damage onto Yutori as well. That BF sword could be used. And it's probably going to end up going towards an Infinity Edge, I'd imagine. Honestly, what else is it built into? Nah, Duskblade. Duskblade virus, right?
New meta. We could also see Essence Reaver if he wants to continue the crit build, but that seems unlikely.
Yeah, or
off the
Guardian
runes here.
Guardian Angel probably is actually another really likely option simply because of how important it is that he survives these fights. But right now, Rampage isn't really moving around a whole lot in terms of the actual map with their Baron buff. They're still looking for picks, and Baron buff is off of everyone except for Lee Sin at this point, I believe.
Yeah, not able to convert the Baron buff into much of anything, which is. I definitely feel
Disappointing.
that Rampage had an opportunity to send more members to the top lane to knock down that final tier 2 turret. Tier 2 turrets are really difficult to defend when you've got a Baron buff coming on you. It's a difficult, tight space. You don't have as much room to work with, but unfortunately not able to do that. And now with the Elder Dragon Light, both teams really want
Uh-oh.
this.
Hall's in a bad spot. Evie's going to try and get a good explosive cast here, but Dark Passage is going to save Orianna from anything too drastic. We actually look, if you take a look at your minimap, there's a lot of damage put onto Burning Core's bot lane turret during that last push by Evie. Not a whole lot coming out of it in the end. But this Elder Dragon is going to be way more impactful if Rampage picks it up than if Burning Core picks it up, simply because they have the four dragons coming out.
Yeah, top wave pushing as well for Rampage. Burning Core needs to secure this dragon. This particular fight, whenever it does happen, is so impactful.
Yeah,
Immediately after taking this dragon, they can just run down to the bottom turret, take down that, as well as the inhibitor. Unless Burning Core pulls off some miracle play or wins this team fight, it's going to be really rough here.
yeah, and we do see Rampage cycling over to the bot lane. We talked about how low it was before. We do see backs coming out. Osterari and Legato are going straight back, but it's Rampage is going to get there first with the double Mountain Dragon. That is going to be the inhibitor going down. That was a fantastic rotation, but we are going to see a flank coming out. We are definitely going to see a big fight coming here in just a moment. Maisie goes in, tries to get the taunt, not coming out yet, only gets Evie. They are going to flay him back, but he's a very tanky man. Shockwave misses as Evie flashes out. And the inhibitor turret is possibly enough. It provides so much pressure, and we do see a large minion wave on the top side that is going to start to be hitting that top turret as well. And so, good map movements by Rampage. We do need to see a little bit more coming out. They do need to go back. They need to go to the Elder Dragon. They need to pick up that final top turret. There's a lot of things they can do. And we're dancing for vision again.
Right. I mean, I like how Rampage is playing this out, though. They're playing methodically. They're playing to their strengths. They're forcing Burning Core to play the game on Rampage's terms. Evie has back. He has that TP available. And they're starting up the Elder.
The double Mountain Drake is huge. Maisie is forced to try and find and engage. They haven't taken a lot of damage from it. And with the taunt down, there's not a whole lot necessarily that he can do. Uh-oh, Shockwave comes out. Ooh, Ramune and Yutori are both forced to flash out. Hollis does flash forward. There's not a whole lot. Yutori is taking a little bit of damage, but not a whole lot. Evie is in the middle. Gets a huge explosive cast. There goes Hollis. That's the main carry going down. Maisie is going to be the next one to fall. And Yutori's doing so much damage in here, supported by every member of his team. Legato is about to get the death sentence, but he does go down as well. Zeros being the last member. That's a 4-for-1 with almost everybody at really high health bars for RPG, and that was a fantastic fight. They get the explosive cask onto everyone. We're going to see, I'm sure they're going to take the mid lane inhibitor, possibly the bot one, and that's possibly
the game.
Yeah,
they got 30 seconds on the death timers. That's a long time. Rampage with the turnaround sweep from Burning Core, excuse me. The start of that fight looked so poor for them, but Evie and Tussle able to just completely turn it around with their ultimate.
Yeah.
And wow, that'll be a quick and easy game one for Rampage.
I don't know about quick or easy, but they do manage to take it. That was a fantastic fight. I can't wait to see the replay for that. Evie's explosive cask, huge player to watch. And this is the kind of thing why almost everybody else is giving him, one of the MVPs of the split kind of thing, because he just makes those incredibly solid moves with all of his champions. And we got to talk a little bit about Hollis there in that fight. We'll see it again.
Right.
He flashes forward, gets the shockwave, flashes over the wall, catches Ramune, almost bursts him out, but not quite. Yutori doesn't get caught in it. That's the kind of Hollis play you expect to see. And in this case, it just wasn't quite enough. He was too far forward. And they'll need to adapt to that. They need to do something other than having your primary carry on Orianna flash forward.
Right. I could definitely see a game where Maisie plays a more, I don't want to say binary, perhaps, top laner, something that with like more clear go in, CC the enemy team and lock them up so that your carries can do the work that they need to do. Because the Galio was really strong in the early game, but as we approached the mid to late game, Rampage just did a really good job of kiting around it. And it never felt like he was able to land his CC on the targets that he needed to land it on, which forced Hollis into these weird positions where, he needs to take out Yutori and he needs to take out Ramune. How else are you going to do that besides putting yourself in really awkward positions?
Yeah, and we do see a short break coming out. It is 5 in the morning over here in Seattle, so we're going to take a short break. Let us, get our thoughts back together, and we'll be back as soon as the rest of the LJL is.